Hello, everyone. My name's John. I'm the Director of Technology and Transformation. Sounds very grand at Christians Against Poverty. That's what CAP stands for. It's there. Good. So I have a colleague here, Ian Fogg. Give us a wave, Ian, who is also at CAP. Ian is a senior developer at CAP. So if you want to know what it's like getting paid to code for the kingdom, then talk to Ian. So I'm just going to give a bit of context about CAP and about our challenge. So we at CAP, we're head office up in Bradford. We're a bunch of passionate Jesus followers, and we have a mission to serve the poor, save the lost with the church across the nation. And if you've seen our challenge statement for the Build Weekend, you'll see that reflected in the challenge we've set you all. How can digital tools enable churches to serve the poor and save the lost in their local communities? We're passionate about serving the poor because we believe God is passionate about the poor. We want the UK church to be declaring, like Jesus did at the start of his mission, that the Spirit of the Sovereign Lord is upon us to preach good news to the poor, to bind up the brokenhearted, and to bring freedom to the captives. That's from Luke 4. That's what Jesus did, and that's what we believe the church should do too. We're passionate about churches turning inside out, to look out to those in their towns and cities who are struggling, and to bring hope and freedom to them. There are dads sleeping on bin bags on the floor, and we want the church to tell them there is hope. There are mums struggling with debt, not eating their own food so that their kids can be fed. We want to tell them there is a way out. There are people considering suicide as their only way out of their financial crisis, and we want to tell them there's always hope. Amen, Ian? Yes. So we started out 21 years ago, a fellow called John Kirkby. If you've heard of anyone at CAP, you'll have heard of him, because he's written books and appeared at various Christian gatherings. He started helping people in Bradford who were in debt. He had a bit of knowledge of the finance industry, and he knew he could help people work their way out of debt. So from 1996, we started partnering with churches around the UK to open up debt centres. That's what we're most known for, our debt counselling work. And the model is that CAP provides a toolkit for churches to run social action and evangelistic work from their church. So if you kind of had to sum up CAP, we exist to equip the church to preach good news to the poor in their community. If you had to put it in one sentence, that would be CAP. We have a bit of a saying, no church, no CAP, meaning we're so passionate about the local church being the hope for our nation that we'll only work with and through the church. We don't do anything direct without a church involved. So to give you a bit of an insight, which helps with the thinking and the how might we's, in the case of our debt work, someone will contact our free phone 0800 number, and we'll book them an appointment for their nearest debt centre, which is housed in a church. They'll get 3 home visits over a series of weeks from a trained team. They'll get introduced to a befriender from the church who will stay in touch with them and support them through the journey. The local team will gather their details about their financial situation, their debts, and then pass that case to head office. And head office do the actual debt counselling of building a budget, working out creditor payments, calling off the bailiffs, etc. We then help some clients go through insolvency and some clients to pay off their debts. In some cases, that's up to 7 years of people sticking to a budget, paying into CAP and paying off their debts via a kind of CAP centralised plan. All of that's free, and it's supported by an in-house built debt management system which stores all the records, the budgets, the payment processing, the debt balances. So we've kind of got the basics of running the debt process. But we'd love to hear what else you could come up with. How would we use digital tools to show clients their progress in their debt repayment? How could we gamify the process of budgeting or remembering to pay in every month? How could we reward people for working well with us? So this chart shows the kind of growth of CAP. It's a little bit small, but that's 96 to 2016, and that gets up to about 600, which is off the screen. But as you can see, the greens are all the debt centres, so we kind of opened steadily more and more debt centres up to 2012-13. And during that period, we ran debt centres, and we also have a CAP Money course, which offers budgeting and financial education on how to manage money well. So it's a 3-session course, videos and workbooks, which a church can train to run. There's a website for that where people can build their own budget, capmoney.org. But again, I'm sure there's tons more we could do with digital tools to help people, for example, track their expenditure against their budget. At the moment, they just set a budget on there. Or how do we link up Cap Money and the debt side more? What could digital tools do to link up those two? From 2013, as you can see, we've introduced job clubs, release groups, and life skills. Job clubs, fairly self-explanatory, helping people who are unemployed back into work. Release groups, helping those with addictions or life-controlling habits. And our latest service is life skills, which is helping people with kind of broader input on living on a tight budget, perhaps shopping on a budget, cooking on a budget. All of these, to give you a sense for the How Might We's, are more group-based courses. They're kind of alpha-ish. That's probably the best-known model. So it's running in a church. It's a group of 5-10 people meeting up every week to work through some material. Again, how might we kind of supplement that with community support, with a forum, with gamification, again, about how many courses you attend or how much you input into others on the course. So we'd love to hear your ideas around that. What time are we on? Okay, I will speed up slightly. Just a couple of, I'm not going to go through all of them, but this one really, really shocks me. We survey our clients. 1 in 3 people from our clients said they seriously considered or attempted suicide before getting help from CAP. So we're genuinely in a very serious business. People often wait a long time before they call us. They're ashamed to call us. They're often in tears on that first phone call. When it works and when people work well with us, we are saving them from considering those kind of options. Our most recent survey shocked us when we found out 1 in 10 of our clients didn't have a bed to sleep on before they started working with CAP. So this is Chris's story. He suffered a death in the family. A relationship breakdown meant he had to give up work to look after children. He was evicted. Following that drop in income, they were rehomed into an empty house. Chris says, at the lowest point, I was kissing my daughter goodnight as she lay on a bin bag full of clothes with a coat for a blanket. I was desperately trying to comfort her by saying everything would be all right. The only problem was I didn't have a clue how I was going to keep my promise. So Chris slept on bin bags for 3 months, eventually was referred to CAP, praise God, through his social worker and got a home visit. And then a few months later, he became debt-free. They were housed in a carpeted home with beds. And thank goodness things have changed for Chris. It's a story like that got me first involved with CAP. We lived around here, went to church in Bermondsey, lived in New Cross. The church in Bermondsey has a debt centre, and we saw the difference it was making, and we loved the fact that CAP combines social action and evangelism so well. So over the years, I was kind of like, I want to get involved in CAP somehow. And 3.5 years ago, it happened. I got to join CAP's leadership team, and we ended up moving to Yorkshire to join the team. Best decision I've ever made, certainly in my career. So before I finish, I've got 2 shameless plugs. Just want to warn you, completely shameless plug. While I have the microphone, I'm going to do this before we move on to the rest of the evening. Number 1, if you'd like to hear more about CAP, support us monthly, become one of our life changers. We have books over there which tell the story of the early years of CAP. Highly recommend it, even just as a faith stretcher. Oh, look, modelled by James Dock. Beautiful. But yeah, John Kirkby took some massive risks. There was lots of Christians who told him, you shouldn't be doing it, God's not with you, it's not going to work out. And he saw God come through time and time again. So if you'd like to hear more, there's forms and books. Secondly, I was walking through Leeds Station the other day, and I saw this advert. I don't know who TPP are recruiting for, but they nicked what would be a great pitch for CAP. Write code, solve problems, save lives. That's what we get to do. We get to get paid to do it. And hopefully over this evening and over the build weekend, you'll get to kind of be part of this. But if you love the idea of getting paid to do it on a permanent basis, then we are recruiting. We'd love to chat to you. If you want to know what it's like, talk to Ian. We're currently actively recruiting for systems developers and infrastructure folk. Some jobs are Bradford-based, some jobs are remote. Ian works remotely from Gloucester. So if you're interested, or as we work together, you get even more interested, and do come and talk to us. Plugs over. I won't do it again, I promise. So for the rest of the evening, Just to sum up the kind of things we're looking at, we're talking about this challenge: how can digital tools help equip churches to serve the poor, save the lost in their local community? We've got our core systems, but what could we enhance that with? We'd love to hear your ideas. How can churches assess the needs in their area for the poor? What other tools could we provide for discipleship and sharing the gospel to the community around the church? What could we provide for debt clients to enhance our service? How could we enhance our group services like job clubs? That's what we'd love to hear about. We've said it broad so that we get all your ideas, and we'll be around for the whole evening to talk about it with you. Thank you very much. How was that? 1 minute over, maybe?
34 seconds. That was quite loud. 34 seconds over, so you get 34 extra seconds, don't worry. Good, you can do 2 plugs, maybe. Okay, let's, before we move on, any questions for John from anyone on anything that you've heard, or anything you haven't heard, because you've got questions on it? Out the back here. I'm going to run around with this so we can, I think we're recording. Okay, so if you speak into this, it'll be recorded.
Hey, this is just a generic question I'd probably ask a lot of people, but how do you work with open source software at all, if at all? And is there any sense in which that helps if you're looking for coders, like leveraging open source community a bit more?
So in terms of what we do, we use a lot of open source software. So all our systems are PHP based, MySQL. We use things like Zen Framework and other tools like that. But in terms of the actual software that we write, everything is closed there. We haven't currently had a conversation about trying to do open source. I think it's an interesting thing for us to chat about, but we've never had that conversation yet in terms of open sourcing our software.
Great. Another question at the back. Irene.
Have you tried something, like particularly in this kind of technology, let's solve a solution, and it's failed? I'd love to hear if you've got any stories on that.
Don't rub it in, Irene. John, you going to answer that?
I can try. Nothing comes to mind. That's partly, I don't have a huge history yet at CAP. Yeah, I have to pass. Can I come back to it if we think of one? If you think of one?
They're too successful. It's so good at what they do. It's good. Any other questions? Anything at all? Yeah, over here.
How have you found the technology proficiency of the people that you're helping with your tools?
I would have taken an extra 30 seconds if I'd remembered to include that. It's a really, really interesting one that we come around to quite often. Our best assessment would be that the typical client we help would probably, certainly has a phone, probably it's a smartphone, probably doesn't have a laptop or computer at home, may have either a kind of data connection through their phone or a basic broadband package. But and therefore, in terms of, so we part of our debt work, we communicate a lot by text with people. People are completely, obviously, comfortable with that. Cap Money, which has a website for running budgeting, is probably used slightly more by the middle class than by the poorest in society. And so kind of transitioning people onto that, I think, would be an interesting thing. How do you make that very usable? How do you make that accessible through a, say, basic smartphone? And yeah, interesting for this, how might we enable churches to do something about that as well? Digital exclusion is a huge issue for the poor, especially. If your benefits, if your interaction with government is all moving online as it is, how do we enable churches to tackle that issue? That's huge. So yeah, love to hear and explore that as well, definitely.
Great. Oh yeah, one more question.
As part of your financial training for people that you're helping, do you help them engage in investing? So put part of your money, part of your income away and put it into this kind of pot and watch it grow. Do you engage in programs like that?
We focus on saving, not necessarily investing. So Cap Money in particular will talk about expenditure that comes along once a year, that if you don't plan and budget for it will really, you know, your boiler goes, or your car that you relied on to get to work needs a serious amount of £600 worth of work, and if you haven't kind of planned ahead for that through the year, that could really catch you out. Now, to give you a sense of Cap Money, we'll mostly talk about doing that in a cash-based way, so it could even be have 3 pots, have 3 envelopes, and this one is your weekly expenditure, this one's your monthly kind of stuff, and this one's your savings for things that might go wrong kind of stuff. We don't then go on and recommend any particular investment or anything like that. I'd say for us, success is actually people putting some money away for anything. We're having a huge debate at the moment about how often people pay in. So for us to pay off, to handle their case and pay off their debts through a central plan, they pay into Cap. Well, some people really would struggle with the idea of paying in monthly as opposed to paying in weekly. If you're paid in cash every week and you're addicted to alcohol or drugs, or there's a person who comes and bangs on your door and demands whatever you bought on loan, your money for your kids' school uniform and your food and whatever is what goes out the door because you're scared by the person at the door. So even kind of paying in regularly, getting through a month and managing your money well is success. So that's the kind of level of financial literacy, pressure, stress that people are under. People have bin bags full of letters that they can't face opening anymore. And we arrive and they go, oh, thank goodness you're here. Take away all the bin bags. And we help bring some kind of order to that chaos. People are basically in denial by that point.